We continue today with we're going on to our economics panel, which which everyone is hurting right now economically because of what's going on. I'm a recently pivoted entrepreneur, so I'm interested in hearing everything that everyone on this next economic panel has to say. I'd like to introduce our panel. From the Office of Economic and Small Business Development, Sandy Michael McDonald. From the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance, Bob Swindell. Broward County Black Chamber of Commerce, Shahira Garrett. From the Broward Workshop, Keith Koenig, he's the chair. And from the Urban League of Broward County, Dr. Jermaine Smith Baugh. And then from OIC South Florida, Newton Sannon. And this is a busy panel. We have a lot of people on here. So I'm going to try to let everybody get in and get something to say. And we're going to start with I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to Dr. Jermaine Smith Baugh. If you're joining us, please chime in. I am managing all of this.
Nikki, you're doing a great job. You're just, doing all kinds of great stuff. So good afternoon, everyone. It's really been a pleasure to have been on since about 10 o'clock, hearing all the other panels move forward. For those who are listening, thank you for taking your time. I think this particular panel is going to be a really interesting one. It's packed with a lot of great voices. I really want to thank our MLK committee for having the fortitude to keep pushing forward. And as we enter this conversation around economics, I really just want to share a very quick thought. I'm really always very interested in all the writings of Dr. Martin Luther King. We get very myopic related to the I Have a Dream speech, and we sometimes forget a lot of the other writings and not take the time to dissect it. But in light of this economic panel, I thought it was really interesting to bring to the forefront the last speech that he made right before his assassination on April the 3rd, 1968. And he was in Memphis, as we all know, addressing and supporting the sanitation workers, which really was about economics. And when we think about that particular speech, there are a couple of things that really come to mind if you ever read through it, is that his call for a sense of maintaining unity across all the sections, whether it was churches, whether it was anchor institutions, as we would now call them. He also called on the congregation at that time to, what I would say today, keep the main thing the main thing. There's a lot of things that can distract us in a lot of different ways. And today, this main thing is about racial injustice. It's about racial inequity. And I find a lot of times over the last 7, 8 months that the word race is getting taken off of a lot of our dialogue, and I challenge us not to do so. He also talked to that crowd about collective pressure of economics and what that could mean to changing the trajectory of many of the institutions. And last but certainly not least, he called the audience using the story of the Good Samaritan to talk about a dangerously unselfish demand, that we need to be dangerously unselfish. But it's not about what is in it for me, as we often do in our society, but what will happen if we don't do something for them, if we don't stop and do something for the person that sits to our left and our right. So I think in this particular panel, as we talk about economics and we bring together a lot of the other intersectionalities, that it'll be a really dynamic conversation. Thanks, Nikki.
Thank you so much. I would like to invite Bob Swindell to join in this conversation. I mean, so many people now who are trying to pivot, or maybe they have businesses that are struggling, are wondering where can they find money in the community to continue to hold on till things get better.
Nikki, thank you very much. And I appreciate the opportunity to be with you all today, and to all the folks that are participating. It's a special way during COVID to acknowledge Dr. King and the impact he's had on our country. Again, my name is Bob Swindell. I lead the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance. We're the economic development organization for Broward County. And I'll throw that question over to my good friend, Sandy Michael McDonald. One of the things I do want to talk a little bit about, this morning, my friend Juliet Werlach started my day with the inspiring quote from Dr. King, and I see it behind Dr. Osgood: "The time is always right to do the right thing." And, we've been talking about Prosperity Broward with our partners in Broward for 2 years now. And it started in the really coming together stage with a group of us going to Charlotte in March of 2019, so almost 2 years ago. And on that trip was President Greg Hale, Newton Sannon, Sandy Michael McDonald. We had a team of our folks from Broward County go up and go to Harvard, actually thanks to Dr. Hale, and meet with Raj Chetty's team. And on the way back, we stopped in Charlotte. And the reason we stopped in Charlotte was they had started a prosperity program there. And here was their motivation. Raj Chetty's team ranked 100 cities in the United States, and Charlotte ranked last in economic mobility in the country, dead last. And the Charlotte business community got together and said, that's unacceptable. We will not be last in the nation for economic mobility. If we really want to be a prosperous community and we want Charlotte to be well recognized, we are going to have to work on prosperity throughout not only Mecklenburg County, but throughout this area of North Carolina. And that was their mandate. And so we sat down and we spent a good bit of the day with the folks in Charlotte and what they were doing, because we wanted to take some of their best ideas and bring them back to Broward County. And how that connects back to us is this Prosperity Broward project that we've taken on, and Commissioner Holness has been an advocate for this for years. So I can't take credit for it that this was an idea that we just came up with a couple of years ago, but it's having these conversations. But our Prosperity Broward team is led by Newton Sannon, who's also a part of this panel, Dr. Greg Hale from Broward College. So we've got a great leadership team. But here's the motivation for us in Broward County. I was talking to a friend of mine from Tallahassee. His name's Mark Wilson. He happens to run the Florida Chamber of Commerce, a pretty conservative organization. And we were talking about Prosperity Broward. And he said, oh, well, yeah, you guys need to do something down there. You got 33311. And I'm like, well, how does the president of the Florida Chamber up in Tallahassee know about 33311? He said, Bob, you have more young people in poverty in one zip code than any other county in the state of Florida. You got 9,000 kids, almost 50% of the population of those kids, 9,000 are living in poverty. He said, if we want to be a prosperous state, we can't have communities and we can't have pockets in our communities like that anywhere in Florida. Broward County is a prosperous county. You know, you guys need to get to work. And so that's part of our motivation. We've got to make sure that the business community in Broward County takes the same stance that Charlotte did and puts a stake in the ground and said, this is unacceptable. We will not have a county, a zip code in our community that's got more kids in poverty than any other county in the state of Florida. You know, part of what we're trying to do with Prosperity Broward is link. We're going to be a disruptor, but we also want to link the services with the job providers. Keith Koenig is on here. He is a perfect example. City Furniture has been working with CareerSource Broward and our team on preferential hiring from the 6 zip codes. I think they've hired, I don't know what the number is now, but it was over 14 people, I think the last time I checked, with our CareerSource Broward folks. Amazon has 12 facilities in Broward County. Now there are big facilities and there are smaller sorting facilities. We've had the same conversation with Amazon. They said, if we could do some training with Broward College, would you give preferential hiring to folks from these 6 zip codes? And Chris Walton with the Broward County Transportation has worked with us and said, we'll help provide transportation to some of these Amazon facilities from these 6 zip codes. So, you know, that's the focus that we're taking. I think that the time is now, you know, again, to quote Dr. King, you know, it's always, you know, the time is always right to do the right thing. And it's been a long time and we've got decades to make up for. We've got to start now. And we're looking forward to working with the team members that are on this Zoom meeting today, because there's several, including Dr. Jermaine Smith-Bowell.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Yes, Dr. Smith-Bowell and the Urban League, they've been doing great work. That's their mission. I think Sandy Michael McDonald, he tossed it to you. So you're next.
Well, thank you, Nikki. And thanks, Bob, for tossing it to me. And thank you, my partner and friend, Dr. Ball, for starting it off. And I know you're even going to get to some of my other colleagues. But as Bob said, it's really for us on the government side about collaboration. Whatever you think about government, and I've done government, God knows how long, from DC to Michigan, and now I'm here in Florida, almost 8 years. But what I can say about Broward County, it really has been about the collaboration. And I heard Dr. Osgood in the schools earlier. I heard about health and education. I heard about the court system. One of the things that I can say, even though we're talking about the economics, without creating that wraparound opportunity for our young adults and our kids to be successful than it's for not. And it's really one of Dr. King's other quotes about, what have you done for others is our office direction and assuring that minority businesses, small and women-owned businesses, have genuine opportunity to participate in county procurement. And when allowed within those regulations and within those guides and even within those ordinances, when we can also set aside specific opportunities for our minority businesses to participate, we do so. So our office is here as a partner to all of the other colleagues who are speaking on this panel specifically and other agencies and organizations throughout Broward to assure that that person with the idea, like the young man we heard about who got congratulated earlier, from that idea to a white paper, to a business plan, to a launch, that we can help the entrepreneur from that start, that small business and that startup. We can help you go back and take a revisit at your original plan and the things you need to do to go forward. And for that intentional entrepreneur, we need to make sure that you recognize it's not about a 9 to 5. It's far more to it than that. But Broward County is special because in other counties across the country I've worked in, Broward has made a commitment that at least 25% of what we buy as a county, and excluding COVID, we normally do about $1 billion in goods, materials, and services a year that we buy. At least 25% must be spent with small business. So is Broward's intent to not just make sure small businesses can participate through our office, but also minority businesses, women-owned businesses. So we want to be intentional about not just introducing the opportunity. 2 years ago, our office decided, in addition to continuing to share information about county procurement, we want to be in a position to develop the businesses to take advantage. It's no different than the federal funds right now. Be in position for you to take advantage of PPP and EIDL. Be in position when the county did the CARES grant to do the small grants for the small businesses. We want to make sure we're helping businesses not only to survive, but to thrive going forward. So again, I'm just happy to be here and to be serving a population in Broward where there is so much support and unapologetic intentions of supporting minority businesses as well, including small and women-owned businesses.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, sir. I'm going to go to Ms. Jarrett from the Broward County Black Chamber of Commerce. I see you on here. What would you like to add to this discussion?
All right, thank you everyone for having me on. It's a pleasure to be with you all this afternoon. I'd like to start with a part of one of my favorite quotes from Martin Luther King Jr., because my message at this time is it's not a time for statements, but it's a time for action, right? Our ancestors and our forefathers have been fighting, in essence, the same fight. And I'm going to give you some statistics for decades, right? Centuries even. So it's time for some action. And MLK talked about the appalling silence of the good people. That's who would have to repent during these times, the silence of our good people. So yes, we like statements. We like the fact that people understand, okay, this is what's happening, but then we need some action behind that, or we will continue to travel on the same road again and again and see the George Floyds and other things happening in our system that create these moments of aha, but then we relax back to what's comfortable. Now, I love to quote this report that was released and issued in September by Citibank, because it points to the critical message of what someone mentioned earlier, the fact that you cannot continue to oppress and neglect and marginalize one community and think that we're all going to prosper, right? So that's why we will have a 33311, right? We cannot segment and separate successes and progress into only certain zip codes in Broward. So according to Citibank, closing the racial wage gap 20 years ago might have provided an additional $2.7 trillion in income available for consumption and investment in Black communities. This is statistics specific to Black communities. Now, with regard to what I focus on, entrepreneurship and Black businesses, the report goes on to say providing fair and equitable lending to Black entrepreneurs might have resulted in the creation of an additional $13 trillion in business revenue over the last 20 years. What could this have been used for? Labor, technology, capital equipment, and structures. In addition to that, it could have created 6.1 million jobs per year. We're talking about economics. which for a lot of us begins with having some type of stable job or income to stabilize our families, stabilize our communities, so then we can invest in those ideas that young Tyler talked about earlier, right? Because we're not worrying about, okay, if my car breaks down, I might not be able to afford it. I might have to take the bus. I might not be able to go to work. I need childcare. We have to talk about that gap that's causing the hurt for the entire economy. When you talk about closing that racial gap, the report also talks about if we close the gap 20 years ago, $16 trillion could have been added to the US economy. That's a loss for us all. And they talk about systemic racism and discrimination in the system that has caused these imbalances, which we'll get to. And they talk about it specifically in wages, education, housing, and obviously investment in communities and in Black businesses in particular. So my point is, let's start talking about how we're going to, in fact, act, right, to make sure that we're not leaving behind communities. And that requires us working with groups that we may not have always traditionally worked with. That means the Alliance and the workshop may need to work with the Broward County Black Chamber, as well as the Urban League, as well as the NAACP, to talk about these economic issues and how we can all come together to solve it. Because it's going to take all of us if we truly want every community in Broward County and in the region really to thrive, not just survive.
Awesome. And it's a great place. Also, remember, everyone, this is your conversation as well. So please put your questions in the chat. I also ask that everyone on this panel put their websites on the chat as well, so that people can have access to finding out more information about where to go to for funds or assistance or just know-how. Next, I want to go to Mr. Keith Koenig. He's the chair of the Broward Workshop. Mr. Koenig, how would you like to add to this?
Hey, good afternoon to everybody. Forgive me for not being on the video, but you wouldn't want to see me bouncing around in the car because I've got to jump onto an airplane in a little bit. My dear wife's dropping me off. But it's an important conversation, and let me give you a perspective. Broward Workshop is about 110 of leading Broward County CEOs that come together to try to enhance the quality of life and the quality of the business climate in Broward County. And after the horrific killing of George Floyd and the ensuing conversations we all had, difficult conversations, it became very clear to the business leaders of Broward County that, just as my colleague, the former speaker, just said, we got to get past conversation into action. And so Broward Workshop on an annual basis tries to prioritize what goals we would take on. What do we want to make sure that we look back over the next year and have accomplished? I'm happy to say that every one of the Broward Workshop 100+ members gets a vote in that. And we have open conversations to be able to discuss what those goals should be. And we have committees that bring the conversation to action. And the top vote getting a goal for 2021 and beyond is enhancing racial justice and eliminating the inequalities, because unless you have economic equality, you can't have total equality. And so the business community sees that we have to take leadership in that. Currently, the goals break down around some of our members' initiatives. Greg Hale runs Broward College and is a remarkable leader and has put together the Broward Unlimited Potential, or UP program, where bringing higher education to the communities maybe that would need to be served better, like 33311. Florida Chamber, our member Charlie Calkins is the chair of the Florida Chamber, and their big initiative that we are trying to piggyback on with Superintendent Runcie, who I will talk about in a second, and Dr. Osgood and her team of Broward County School Board members are doing a spectacular job. I want to address that in a second. But we want to help enhance third grade reading levels in, I don't know whether it's economic support or what the involvement is, but we set the goals and then the strategies follow. But there's one that we will work on this year that was really the reflection of Jermaine, my dear friend Jermaine Smith-Baugh. And I was talking to Jermaine during all these conversations, and we have a number of Black CEOs, Tony Coley, Frank Scruggs, people that I really respect, Juliet Rulak from FP&L, Sean Davis has got a nice accounting firm. People that I really respect spoke with kind of one voice to say, it's time. We've got to get this. We've got to address this head on. We got to have the uncomfortable conversations. And the business community, I said, has got to act. The business community can't be a part of the conversation. Yeah, we made a statement, et cetera. It's got to show. I said to Jermaine, I said, what should we be doing? I'm a guy that wants to see stuff changed and done. And she looked at me and she said, Jermaine, you remember what you said? You said, well, do you have a racial equity diversity scorecard for your suppliers? And I said, no. And she said, you should consider having one. And I said, that's a damn good idea. We're going to do that. And we've already taken important actions to be able to say, let's look at our suppliers across our county and let's look where we can have racial diversity that is appropriate for our community, appropriate for our business. And I'm going to hold our team accountable for doing that. I've already made an important decision on one major construction project that we're going to have that's going to go to my friend Dwight Stevenson. And I have to say that I'm, as foolish or stupid or, just blank as because I've known Dwight and I've said, we ought to do business together. We ought to do business together, but I didn't do it. But when I looked at myself and our business from that lens and said, hey, this is one that I can make a decision on. I said, let's do the Miami Garden Store with Dwight. Called him up and he's excited about that opportunity. And we're going to do another project with him. So we got to take leadership in the business community to drive economic equality. And
Yes.
I believe we can do it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Koenig. I know you're about to jump on a plane. Thank you so much for making time for us. Janice Carter has a question for everyone. I'm going to go to Mr. Newton Salmon.
Forgive me. Can I just throw one additional thing in?
Why not?
I got to
go for it.
Yeah. Equality starts, economic opportunity starts with education. If I wouldn't have had the opportunity to get the education I had, I could not be in this seat today.
Yes.
And the key to education is having good leadership. And we have a great school board and a great superintendent in Bob Runcie. Fabulous. He took over, graduation rates were in 76% range. This past year was 89.4, close to, if not an all-time high. Yet there are people who are out to cause him to leave our community. And I don't get it. We couldn't find a better superintendent. Now, I don't believe it's at all racially biased. I think it's biased by individuals having a point of view that they want taken care of, not looking out for the best for the kids. Broward Workshop has been behind Superintendent Runcie and the school board for years because we set that as a goal. Believe it or not, it's our number 2 goal, is to keep the continuity of the school board and Superintendent Runcie running the school system. So I'm going to call on the entire Black community. You have to help me. You have to raise up one voice and say, Bob Runcie is the best superintendent we might have ever had. He has been recruited by big educational systems across the country. He's nationally recognized, Florida Superintendent of the Year, yet he is being attacked consistently. And the Black community has not come out and spoken loudly enough in support of him. So I will challenge you, if you want economic equality, it starts at the pre-K and kindergarten and through K through 12 range. And we got the best leadership we have, and it's in danger. And we as a business community will speak with the Black community to be able to say, keep Superintendent Runcie and the school board working in the right direction.
Thank you, Mr. Koenig. And on behalf of Dr. Runcie, I'll thank you for him too. We're going to go to Newton Salmon from OIC. This question comes right in your ballpark as if people talk about, because Janice Carter's like, what about childcare and the affordability of all of that for the economy? Without access to this, the economy cannot grow. As a mother, I hear you. The cost of childcare blew me away. I had a job. I can't imagine how people who are not working can think of working if they can't afford a safe place to put their child. And I know at OIC, you do a lot of work trying to get people back in the workforce. I know this has been a really trying time for you guys.
Well, thank you so much, Nikki, and thank you for the committee for putting this together. I appreciate my colleagues. I certainly want to shout out Shahiwa Jarrett, who's one of our board members on our Social Enterprise Corporation. But let me jump right into it because a lot to be covered. I've been asked to talk about, certainly this committee, this segment is about economics and specifically our business of workforce development. And I've been asked to talk about our work around individuals who we call returning citizens who are coming from our jails and prison systems to the state of Florida. Just to give you some data points, I've had the pleasure of running our organization for the last 19 years, and this data point has not changed substantially enough. But here's the deal. According to the Florida Department of Corrections, we hover between 1, 2, and 3 in the state of individuals who are returning from incarceration. That means we're incarcerating more individuals than most counties in the state, and we have a lot of work to do there. Specifically, about 200 and 300 people come in per month back to Broward County from state correctional facilities alone. That's contextually relevant when we think about the racial inequalities and finding solutions for the title of this entire endeavor. I was elated when I heard the presentations earlier on from Sheriff Toney and others to talk about the urgency of working on this right away. There's broad implications when we continue to incarcerate, particularly folks from minority communities. Not only does it derail the opportunity for them to be contributing members of society, creating jobs, contributing to the tax base, but on average, they have 2 to 3 children. And our data shows and tells us that upwards of 75% of children who have parents who have been incarcerated tend to fall into that same vicious cycle. So when we think about economics, there is no secret to any balance sheet. One of your basic expenses are going to be your personnel costs. But if our men and women of color are incarcerated at such great rates, it's a knock on our ability to contribute to a strong tax base, have a strong economy, a vicious cycle of poverty for our children and our families to contribute. And that's why I think that's contextually relevant to this presentation. Last thing I want to say, the other question I was actually talked about, what are we doing about it? I love that question. We solidified another $5 million during the COVID from the U.S. Department of Labor. And so if anybody has a family member, a friend who has been released from incarceration, needs an opportunity to get a job, please have them reach out to our organization. I'll put the website on. Lastly, thank you to Broward County Commissioner Holness for the recent appointment of the Police and Criminal Justice Review Board, where we're going to be talking about serious reform. My last point, Sheriff Toney raised the question and a few others about how do we get serious and move the needle now? To your point that you said to Keith Germain, we need to have a scorecard. The community agrees on what progress looks like. To your point, Shahira, otherwise we'll be singing the same song over and over and over again. Change is not a spectator sport. We're committed. I thank you for all the leadership on this call today, and we look forward to contributing to positive change for many years to come. Thank you so much.
All great information. Thank you to all of our panelists. Regarding that childcare question, the Children's Services Council just put their information on the chat. Contact them. Also remember 211 is your number in Broward County. Also, I also volunteer at the Boys and Girls Club. I know they've worked really hard to bring back safe spaces for after school care, and they're always such a great resource. Thank you to all our panelists. Put your information in the chat, and so appreciate you and all the work you do every day. Coming up, we have our panel on community empowerment. We're going to talk about voting. We're going to talk about everything that has happened next. But first, we have some entertainment from the Dillard High School Band.